We are continuing talking about Edwene Gaines' book, The Four Spiritual Laws of Prosperity. I said when I began this talk that someone came to me for relationship advice, and I recommended this book. Somebody else came to me the next day wanting financial advice, and I recommended this book. And I think that really what we want in life comes down to everything that is taught in this book, believe it or not. So let's go through what prosperity is. Go ahead, please. Read this aloud. What is prosperity? Comfortable worldly home for the spiritual beings we are. So, if you don't have a vitally alive, healthy body, are you a prosperous person? Yes or no? Come on, say it out loud. It's okay. The answer is no, because you can get prosperous. Okay, so it's okay. No. So prosperity is not just money, money, money. Prosperity is the whole schlemiel, okay? It's the body, it's the work, it's relationships. Let's go to the second part. Prosperity is?
Relationships that are satisfying, nurturing, honest, and work all the time.
And that's what we're going to talk about next week is relationships. And I don't want to see you dragging anybody here. Number 3, prosperity is?
Work that we love so much that it's not work, it's play.
That's possible. And no matter how much money you make, if you hate your job, you're not a prosperous person. Let's go to number 4. Prosperity is what?
All the money you can spend.
And that's exactly where it belongs. It belongs as number 4. It belongs as number 4 because if you don't have all the other things, what we do is to spend money to take our minds off the fact that we hate our jobs or we hate our bodies or we hate our relationships. And one of the main coping mechanisms that human beings, we have 2 predominantly, is eating and spending. That's true. I'm speaking sociologically. And we have 2, eating and spending. And so what most people do is, even when the money starts coming in, they don't really build up any sense of prosperity because they're spending it to try and take away this angst that's inside them, this discomfort. So, as we've talked about it, there are certain things you need to do to become a prosperous person, and this one that we're going to talk about today, and I love this, that Rick put this slide together for us. What does it say? Clearly defined goals. You know what? I'm not going to try and convince you to write out your goals. I really am not. I'll just hit you with some stats and some personal stories. Is that okay? Statistic number 1, 97% of people will never write their goals down. Let me say that again. 97% of people will not write their goals down. However, when you interview people who call themselves successful, 100% do. Many years ago, I was deeply in debt, and so I got turned on to Dave Ramsey's books, and I actually have taught his program. And Dave says something wonderful about budgets. He says you can tell your money where to go or wonder where the heck it went. I'm going to borrow that from Dave Ramsey, and we're going to talk. You can just leave it on the other slide. That's good. On the goal slide. I'm going to use that because you can either tell your life where you want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. Oh, I don't know. Let's put that in the form of an affirmation. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. Say that with me, please. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. I know you stumbled, so we're going to do it again. I can, see, this way y'all are doing all the speaking. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. I can come on, clap. Or wonder where the heck it went. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. Point made? This is I actually put this on here because I love the show, How I Met Your Mother, and I love this quote from Neil Patrick Harris. When I get sad, I stop being sad and be awesome instead. True story. This is my goals. What did I call it? Goals, visions, realized and/or fulfilled file. These are goals that I have fulfilled. I started doing this about 10 years ago. Let me ask you a question. Why do you think I have this folder? To remind myself? Yep, that's very true. That's one of the main things is to remind myself of all the goals I've achieved. But there's an even more basic question than that. Why do I have this folder? Because I write my goals down. Because I actually have goals to write down, to know when they're done. That's why. Most people don't. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. Your turn. I can either tell my life where I want it to go or wonder where the heck it went. I pulled this out this morning. I really didn't. I mean, honestly, I pulled this out of my folder this morning. And I found this picture of me, and I tell you what, I'll pass it around in just a second. And I know you can't really see it on the camera. But that looks like me, right? That's me, right? Okay. Anything odd about maybe the skin tone and the body? Here, Jane, take a look at it. Take a look at the body skin tone and then look at my face. What's different?
Your face is darker.
My face is darker than the body. Now, I wonder why that is. Maybe it's not my body. Pass it around. I looked until I found a guy in his 50s who looked like I wanted to look. And then I photoshopped and you don't have to use Photoshop. You can use PowerPoint these days. It's so easy to do stuff. I put my head on this dude's body and I put it everywhere around me. And my goal was, the second time Marty and I went to Jamaica, to look like that. Now, the interesting thing is, I bought the same shirt the guy has. I have the same picture, and we look almost exactly the same. Because I told my life where I wanted it to go instead of wondering how the heck it got there. I told my body where I wanted it to go. We don't do this. We don't write our goals down, and I've tried to figure this out. And I think that some of the main reasons are we think that once we do it, we concretize it, our egos go so crazy telling us, who the heck do you think you are to do that? My ego does that with everything I have ever accomplished. That's its job. It is there to tick you off so that you go, oh yeah, watch this. That is why we all have that critical inner voice. It is our sacred clown to challenge us. And when we write it down, man, the first time I wrote down I'm going to be a minister, I thought lightning was going to strike me. That's the craziest darn thing in the world. Me? Are you kidding? But when we write it down, we begin to believe it. We begin to believe it. See, the guy who wrote down, I'm going to be a minister, was not a minister. It was me, but it was 20 years of speaking in churches ago. It was 10 years of ministerial study and ordination ago. But I wrote it down saying, I will. I will. I'll tell you the other reason. I really want you to know I think this is the sad part, and I think it's true. The more I study and I read books on sociology, because I want to figure out what is up with us. You know, why can't we do what we really know we want to do? And it comes down to the fact that it is such a strong desire in us to fit in with everyone else, that the desire to do something else, even though we knew it is good for us, we squash it. There's a saying in China, the nail that rises up gets hammered down. Now, we don't have that believing as a society, but we sure do as a culture, and that is in our families and everything. Who do you think you are? What makes you think you can, which really means don't do it because then you'll prove that we could also do it and we're lazy. Do you get that? When other people are going, oh, no, slow down, don't do this, it's like, oh man, they're going to prove it's possible, and then I'm going to look bad by comparison. Fear. If you're going to have an awesome, prosperous life, you're going to have people that look at you from time to time going, who do you think you are? You just break out of the herd. You find new people. You find new people. I really just pulled this out. But everything in here. No, that was a good one, actually. That was when we were doing the Church in Vision, and I was looking for my fill-in speaker who would fill in for me. Here is my intentions for an app designer I wanted to hire to make my Happy Stat app. Before I Google, which is still out there, it does very, very well. You can download it for your iPhone or your Android device. It helps you become a happier person. This is what, they're fairly priced. They do awesome work. They can interface the app with Facebook and help us build a support community. They can create apps for both Droid and iPhone. They're fun and collaborative to work with. I put that in everything. I got to like you to work with you. Whether I hire you or you hire me, if I don't like you, it's too much. I have to like you. That's why before I go speaking anywhere, I interview the person who's going to, they think they're interviewing me, but it's the other way around. I want to make sure they're cool people to work with. You write it down, and the universe goes, oh, well, okay, then I'll add that ingredient. Otherwise, you don't get that ingredient. You may get everything else, but you don't get the fun and cool to work with part. Marty and I were talking about stories, and I'll tell you two real quick. The first story, everything I'm telling you, I'm not embellishing that much, okay? I kid you, I am not, because that's the importance of this story is the truthfulness in it, okay? So, this would have been 1995. I was living in Aner, South Carolina. I was storing a bunch of stuff at my mother's house in Manning, South Carolina. Actually, it was in a storage unit in Manning, South Carolina. And I wanted to get my stuff, so I borrowed a pickup truck. Now, this thing was old, okay? This was FFT, Fred Flintstone technology. This thing was so old, and it literally, my friend kept a case of oil in the back because it went through that much oil. Now, I had to go 150 miles, pick up my stuff, turn around, go 150 miles back. The last minute, I invited my dog Gibson to go for a ride. So Gibson hops in the truck with me. We're going along. It's a hot South Carolina day. We go, we load the stuff up. I look in. The crankcase is empty. I've got to add oil, and I add all the rest of the oil, but all I got to do is go home. So I decide to take, and I'm sure you all know the path well, I decide to take a shortcut through Greeleyville. That was a joke. Anyway, you all don't know Greeleyville, South Carolina. That's the point. In Greeleyville, as you drive down, there's a 12.5-mile stretch that is considered Greeleyville, okay? On that 12.5-mile stretch, there are exactly 13 homes. That makes you a home about every mile, okay? About every mile. We're driving along, and the check engine light comes on the thing. And I'm like, oh my, this is before cell phones, okay? So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm way down here, but the zip code is EIEIO. I don't know what's going to happen. But you know what? I decided in that moment, this was so pivotal. This was the first time I can remember actually doing this. I decided that I get to choose how this was going to turn out. And I decided that I was going to see myself sitting in my front yard with Gibson wearing the same clothes I was wearing that night. So no matter what happened, I was getting home. That was my goal. Clear? Was that clearly defined? Specific? That's what goals need to be. Well, about that time, the truck starts bucking like this, and I'm just going to ride it as long as I can. And we pull in right in front of someone's house. Right in front of someone's house. This is a Ford F-150 I was driving. The odds are 1 in a mile I'm going to pull into front of somebody's house. I kid you not. I didn't brake. I rolled up to this dude's front yard. Okay? I went up and I knocked on the door because I wanted to use the phone. I was trying to figure something out. I thought I could get a friend to come get me or something like that. But that night I was going to be where? Home. With who? Gibson, okay? In the same clothes, period. I go up and I knock on the guy's door and I said, hey man, my truck broke down. Can I use your phone? And I noticed the guy's like peering around me the whole time I'm talking. And I'm like, this is a little creepy. And he says, I tell him my whole story and then he doesn't say anything. And I'm thinking, nobody knows where I am. And he said, is that a Ford? I said, yeah. He goes, let me take a look at it. Now, this wasn't my truck, so I'm not letting, anybody go under the hood. And he brings out his tools, and I'm like, those are some nice tools. He goes, yeah, I'm the service manager at the Ford dealership over in Sumter. I'm not done. He comes out and he analyzes the problem and he says, you know what you've got is actually a plumbing problem because you've got 2 fuel tanks and the little adapter that switches one to, you've got gas, there's no problem, but you can't switch it over from that particular fuel tank. He said, it's more of a plumbing issue. He says, if we had a plumber, everything would be great. And I said, you know what, that's okay, can I use your phone? And he said, now wait a minute there, buddy. My daddy, who's a plumber, is visiting from Tennessee. Let me go get him. Papa comes out. He's looking under there. They're conferring. And to me, they might as well be speaking Urdu. I know nothing about mechanics. I'm just listening to this foreign language. And Dad says, you're right. We need to fix it. It needs that little part. He says, but you don't need the switch. He says, you just need the tube. All you need is a tube about 3/4 of an inch thick, wide, and about 4 inches long. And the son reaches into his toolbox and goes, like this? And the father said, where did you get that? And the son said, I found it on my workbench about 2 months ago. I just tossed it in there in case I ever need it. One of the greatest things I've ever heard Will Smith say is that I bend the universe to suit my will. We all do. It's just that most of us are pretty weak-willed and we set really, really low expectations. Jesus Christ said it is the Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. God wants to help you out and make things work out. You just don't know what worked out looks like. You got to figure it out and then hold on to it. Hold on to it. Hold on to it. My last story. When we got to the 6 millionth complaint-free bracelet, we'd sent out almost 6 million bracelets. I started talking with my partner at the time, and I said, so who do we give the 6 millionth bracelet to? Let's make a big deal out of this. And he said, well, we've always loved the quote, because we had T-shirts made up initially that said, if you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. Don't complain. Dr. Maya Angelou. So we said, let's give the bracelet to Dr. Maya Angelou. I don't know Maya Angelou. I didn't know anybody who knew Maya Angelou. But I decided we were going to give the bracelet to who? Fait accompli, done deal. That was it. And I called my agent and I said, do you know anybody who represents Maya Angelou? No, I don't. She's very reclusive. She's never done book endorsements, right? I don't know her. Call my publisher, Random House. They publish some of her books. No, sorry, can't help you. So you know what I did? I said, to hell with it, and I gave up. Just kidding. I went around told everybody I was giving the bracelet to Dr. Maya Angelou. I went ahead and took it to a trophy shop, had it framed with her name on it, and it sat in my home. And I kept telling people this is what I was going to do, period. I wasn't like, I'm going to do this. It was like, I'm going to do this. I don't know how, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this. So I was at Unity Village one day, and someone was speaking, and at the end, I saw a good friend of mine, Joy, who's a minister. And I went up and hugged Joy, and we were talking, and I said, she said, what's going on with you? She says, I still see you're sending out all these complaint-free bracelets. I says, I'm going to give the 6 millionth bracelet to Dr. Maya Angelou. She said, that's fantastic. Please tell her I said hi. And I said, okay. Gave her a hug and walked away, and I went, what? I mean, I literally, what? Hi, you know her? She says, oh yeah, I used to book her when she was a speaker. Joy called her office. I talked to her assistants, Mrs. Clay and Mrs. I can't remember the other lady's name, quite a bit. They found out I was the real deal. They invited me. She invited me to her home in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I flew out with a good friend who's a photographer. She was all dressed up, which I thought was really sweet. Here I'm going to see one of the most famous women on the planet, Oprah's mentor. Okay? That's because when you walk in her living room, there's a picture of her and Oprah, and that's it. It's not a big one. It's about this big, but that's it. And I walk in, and she's all dressed up in this beautiful black dress, and she's been on oxygen that day. And actually, if you look at the pictures of she and I, you can kind of see the line. Two weeks before she made her transition, I called her and asked her if she'd be willing to let me interview her on my podcast radio show. It's a pretty big show. I had like 42 listeners at the time. You know what she said? She said yes. Not only that, she allowed the interview that she and I did to be the foreword for my new book, for the revised edition of my Complaint-Free World book. So I'm one of the few authors that can say their foreword was written by Dr. Maya Angelou, the Poet Laureate of the United States. Now I have a question for you. How the hell did that happen? I still don't know, and I don't care. Just to tell you, it happens, but only 100% of the time when you write your goals down. And when you're absolutely serious about it, and when you continue to believe it, and you only continue to believe it until it happens. You can quit then. Okay? But the whole point is, the crazy is just stuff you haven't tried yet. It really is. The insanely, wonderfully, wonderful, successful is stuff you just haven't gone for yet. And if you're tithing and doing the other things that we've taught, the universe is already bringing good stuff to you, but you don't know what to do. And it's like I was watching, anybody write Parks and Recreation, raise your hand. Little Sebastian forever. Okay. Anyway, nobody else gets that. But I'm watching that, and there's this couple, and all of us, they're really poor, and they're really cute, and they're teenagers, and they're a young couple. They're married. They're like 19. And all of a sudden, they get a bunch of money. And the money is supposed to be used to buy nice things for their home because they're eating off Frisbees. They have no plates. And so they go, and they see all this as seen on TV stuff. And that's what they buy instead. They buy all this as seen on TV stuff. You know, all this crazy stuff? I don't know how much TV, but I hear it's pretty crazy. Anyway, so the point is, the universe is going to start bringing you more and more and more and more and more and more and more good as you practice these things. But if you don't know where you're going, you're just going to go to the wrong place that much faster. I can tell my life, not my wife, that's for sure. I can tell my life where I want it to go, or I can wonder where it went. Say that with me one more time. I can tell my life where I want it to go, or I can wonder where it went. I was ahead of myself because now I want you to say, I tell my life where I want it to go. I tell my life where I want it to go. One more time. I tell my life where I want it to go. And so it is. Take somebody's hand and let's close in prayer. Here we go. Divine and infinite Spirit, we are reminded that we live in an abundant universe. We simply don't know what we want, and as a result, we complain about not having it. In this moment, we take control, responsibility for our lives by determining who we are, where we're headed, and where we want our lives to go. It's that easy because we know you're waiting to give us the good stuff. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.